What is an existential crisis, in your opinion? It's a word that sometimes people reach when they feel the building blocks of their life have ceased to make sense. That for all sorts of reasons, the place they find themselves in no longer feels like it makes sense anymore. You might have a sense of, why am I in this relationship? Why am I in this job? Why do I live in the country I live in? And existential crises are good things. We should have them. They often happen on a Sunday evening. Sunday evening is that moment in the week when there's a gap to question, why am I me? What's this assumption that I have about what I should be doing? And to regularly submit yourself to a complete existential audit, as it were, to go, could I be someone totally different? Is it all gone wrong, etc.? Don't get me wrong. It's terrifying to feel most of what we're doing is slightly arbitrary. There is no necessity. We tell ourselves, well, I have to do this and I have to be here. The existential insight is, no, you don't. We're all completely free. We could be doing other things. The necessity is one that we're putting on ourselves. But that's dizzying. I mean, that's existential vertigo. And we think, oh my God, I've got so much possibility that I don't know where to start.
Depression is dangerous not just because you're sad, but because it slowly rewrites who you think you are. It tells you, this is where you belong now. And over time, you start believing it, organizing your life around misery until living itself feels pointless. I remember reaching a point in my life where I believed that nothing mattered. No purpose, no divine meaning, just existence. And then I asked myself, if nothing matters, why does my suffering matter so much? You know, if the universe doesn't give a shit, why am I carrying this weight? If nothing truly matters, then I'm free. I'm free to fail. I'm free to try again, to start over. I had to lose absolutely fucking everything to realize how little it all meant. The depression and anxiety cured when I started focusing on the now. Depression is living in the past and anxiety is living in the future. Most of the prison I lived in was built from social expectations, rules and judgments that were never truly mine. But depression doesn't leave just because you understand it. Depression responds to behavior, not to philosophy. So I started small, I started fixing my sleeping schedule. I started training. I started cleaning stuff, facing my finances, because chaos outside eventually becomes chaos inside. Some days the only goal was simple: do more than nothing. One push-up, one dish, one walk, one phone call, whatever it was. Depression feeds on stillness. Your brain will tell you, you failed. But you have to learn to disobey those thoughts. Every day, remind yourself, this is not who I'm choosing to be. Sometimes depression isn't just suffering, it's a signal that the old version of you is outdated and something inside you is trying to evolve. But that's the thing, the journey doesn't happen lying in bed, it begins when you stand up, even when your legs feel heavy. Depression is a battle with your own mentality. There is no speech, no quote, no video that I can post here that will win it for you. Only your choices and your habits. And you don't win this battle in one heroic moment, you win it in small, quiet acts of defiance every day. A movement over stagnation, action over despair. So if you feel depressed right now, don't try to fix everything at once. Just do more than nothing as often as possible. Stories don't end in the middle, and neither do people. As long as if you're still breathing, there's still a chapter left to write. The meaning of your life is something you build out of the very pain that almost destroyed you.
People talk about depression all the time. The difference between depression and sadness is just, from happenstance. Whatever happened or didn't happen for you, or, grief or whatever it is. And depression is your body saying, fuck you, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me.
Right.
And so a friend of mine who's a spiritual teacher has a really good take. His name is Jeff Foster, and his take on it is that they should change. You should think of the word of depressed as deep rest. Deep rest. Your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been trying to play.
Right. Most people believe that self-discipline is the key to success, but neuroscience suggests that the real driver is something far less obvious, and those who master it evolve faster than anyone else. Here's what no one likes to hear. Self-discipline doesn't fail because you are weak. It fails because it's trying to override a nervous system that doesn't feel safe. Neuroscience shows that when the system is stressed, dysregulated, or operating from threat, discipline becomes a fight against yourself. You can push for a while, but eventually the body wins. Burnout, procrastination, self-sabotage, not because you don't care, but because something deeper is pulling the brakes. The real driver isn't discipline, it's capacity. The ability to stay regulated while stretching into the unknown. The ability to tolerate discomfort without collapsing or forcing. And the ability to feel safe enough to move consistently. People who evolve faster aren't stricter with themselves. They are safer in themselves.
The modern world is destroying your brain's visual system, and I'm going to use neuroscience to prove it. I'm also going to give you 3 neuro hacks, which you can start doing today to improve your brain's visual focus and attention. You're supposed to blink 15 times per minute. But guess how many times you blink when you're staring at a screen? Only 5 times per minute. That's alarming because blinking resets the brain's visual system to enhance focus because there's these sudden changes in light patterns. And even when you go outside, you stare at an artificial world. Houses, cars, buildings, streets. These visual stimuli are way too simple and linear for the human brain. It doesn't get enough dopamine from them. So no wonder most people are unhappy and they get their dopamine fix by being addicted to bad habits. So here are 3 neuro hacks you can do today to 10x your brain health and improve your visual focus and attention. Number 1, create a habit of consciously blinking when you are working in front of a computer. Number 2, take a break. Go in nature so you can be around fractals. Fractals are these geometric patterns you find in nature which have the perfect complexity for the human brain. Our brains have evolved to love fractals. In fact, even a 3-year-old baby can recognize fractals. And the last brain hack, thread a needle. Threading a needle improves your focus through microsaccades. Microsaccades are these very tiny eye movements that are happening all the time. And so when you force your brain to regulate the frequency of microsaccades by threading a needle, you get an activity that improves the sharpness and acuity of your brain.
Astrology was not meant to be a guidepost for every action you take with your newborn or with yourself. It was to be only a guide, not an instruction manual, but a guide, showing you the different programs that your TV sets could bring on, and then you tune into what program you want. The stars do not impel you to do anything. I'm sorry, they do not compel you to do anything. They impel you in a direction that you already want to go, and that's why you choose to follow that particular star sign. Why am I saying this? By understanding when your child came in, you will get a general tendency as to its strengths and weaknesses. Advanced souls make astrology. They do not follow astrology. They can be as different from their sign, ascending, natal, or otherwise as night and day. And understand also that because of the progression of the equinoxes, our signs are off 30 degrees anyway. I keep saying this because so many of us are choosing astrology now to escape to, saying again, that child was born like this, was under that sign, and that's my Gemini, and that's my... No, sir. These souls make or break astrology. They make or break stars. They are free souls in a free will zone, and they're here to express.
I'm going to make a picture of the mind. Let this represent the mind. Let this represent the thing that we've given all of our attention to now, up till now, the body. It's this thing here that moves into action and causes the results that we get. If we're going to change what we do, or if we're going to change our behavior, we're definitely going to have to change what's going on in here. If we're going to change what's going on in here, we're going to have to understand how it functions. There are two sections to the mind, joined together, but different in their method of operation. This is the conscious mind, and this is the subconscious mind.
Thoughts are like drops of water. You drop a drop of water on the table here, and it doesn't mean much. But if you keep dropping and keep dropping and keep dropping, the table becomes a wash, and then you get a puddle on the floor, and then you can get a little pond and a lake, and finally you can create an ocean. And with our own thoughts, we can drown in a sea of negativity, or we can float on the ocean of life. And it's up to us. The thoughts we think accumulate. And what sort of puddles are you standing in? Or are you up to here? Or are you up to here and trying to paddle? When we're willing to change our thinking, we can change our experiences.
If a person would sit down and let their body relax, totally relax, and then start to visualize in their mind, see themselves the way they want to see themselves. See how you'd like to live your life. See yourself living it that way. Now understand that that's a picture in your mind. When you pick up a book, the book is nothing but a picture that an author has painted in words. Van Gogh, the great artist, was asked one time how he did such beautiful work. He said, I dream my painting, and then I paint my dream. They get the picture in the mind, and then paint it on the wall or on the canvas. Well, if we would relax and build the image in our mind of how we'd like to see ourselves, how we'd like to see ourselves acting in life, relating to other people, our social life, see ourselves in the position we hold, or how we make our sales presentations if we happen to be in selling or something, and then take that picture and describe it, write it out in the present tense. I am so happy now that I see myself, and write it out. Now, a lot of people will laugh at this and say, that doesn't make any sense. It makes a lot of sense. They can't tell you why it doesn't. I could spend hours telling you why it does, and I could explain it in such detail that everyone would understand it. But write out a description of how you'd like to see yourself. Start to read it, and read it, and read it, and read it every day. Carry it around and keep reading it. The one point that all the great teachers, all down through history, have all agreed on, they've been in complete unanimous agreement on it, we become what we think about. Now, it may be fantasy at first, it might even appear to us as being a lie. But if you read it often enough, you'll start to believe it. And when William James said, believe and your belief will create the fact, you will see the person's personality change. I watch people in the seminars' personality change right in front of my eyes. And all they're doing is starting to see themselves different. They're starting to think different thoughts.
Most people set a goal and then wait for it to happen. It's never going to happen. You've got to assume that it's already happened. Mentally, it's already happened. It's happened because I've got the idea in my conscious mind. Then I've got to get emotionally involved in it. I've got it intellectually, I've got it emotionally. It's only a period of time till it moves into form. How does it move into form? Well, you attract whatever's required for it to move into form. You attract all the energy that's necessary to produce the physical result. How do you do that? You do that by intellectually and emotionally staying in the vibration of the good that you desire. You see it already in the present tense. So that keeps you on the frequency, and that frequency then dictates what you're going to attract. You can only attract to you what's in harmonious vibration with you.
Be very clear on what it is that you want. Spend 5 minutes sitting down and visualizing those things being true, and then give gratitude for that. Like, see it, feel it in your body, taste it in your mouth, hear it in your ears. Completely immerse yourself in that for 5 minutes, longer if you can. And then just be so grateful for all of that. Essentially what you're doing is moving your brain from a fear state to a trust state. And that is the gateway to making these changes.
learn from your mistakes, dust yourself off if it doesn't work out. Ask yourself, if I'm facing this situation again, how would I do it differently? What did I learn from it? Yeah, and continue on your journey. There's no right or wrong path.
When you began your journey, you were determined. Nothing could stop you. And now that you are so close, are you willing to give up so easily? It was easier at the beginning. Beginnings are often easier. What's the point of fighting my way up the mountain when someone else is just going to come up the easy way? There is always going to be someone who does things the easy way. But that should not stop you from doing things the right way. It is your journey, young warrior. Only you decide when it ends.
If you decide today that you're going to live every day like it's your last for real, which means have a conversation with yourself every night that, okay, that was it. May not be no more after that. And really count yourself every day like this could have been it. If you can do that, it'll change your life. You'll really start making decisions and living your life like this all you got, just this one day.
So you look at somebody who's in shape. I can infer from your body a lot of things about who you are beyond just your body. I actually think that this is one of the huge benefits that most people don't realize about getting in shape. If the signal of being in shape is usually a reliable indicator of what you've done to have to get there. Disciplined, reliable, able to do hard things, self-motivated, consistent, stick to a routine, conscientious, industrious, all of these things.
Roger Federer claims to sleep around about 12 hours. He does that with about 10 hours at night and about a 2-hour nap during the day. Usain Bolt, the famous sprinter, who slept somewhere between 9.5 to 10 hours a night. I believe one of the world, and he takes naps strategically during the day. And one of the world records that he broke, he'd only been awake for about 35 minutes beforehand after sleeping, and then came out and broke a world record. They all know the power of sleep, and they use it. The basketball player LeBron James sleeps 12 hours as well. We work with all of these athletes. So sleep is probably the greatest legal performance enhancing drug that few athletes are abusing enough.
If you want to be wealthy and happy the rest of your life, just learn this lesson well. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. I have found in my experience that income does not far exceed personal development. Now, sometimes income takes a lucky jump, but sure enough, unless you grow out where it is, it'll usually come back where you are. Life has strange ways. If somebody hands you $1 million, best you become a millionaire quickly, so you get to keep the money. Otherwise, sure enough, it'll disappear. Somebody once said, if you took all the money in the world, divided it up equally among everybody, it would soon all be back in the same pockets. Success is something you attract, not something you pursue. So instead of going after it, you work on yourself. Personal development. Because true happiness is not contained in what you get. Happiness is contained in what you become.
If you find somebody who's genuinely talented, intellectually curious, hardworking, high integrity, mark my words, I guarantee you that 20 years from now, those people will be successful. And I wish I just invested in or stayed close to every single one of them. I can't think of a single exception.
Train your mind to see the good in every situation. Just start looking for something good. The rule of thumb is there is something good in everybody and in every situation. And there are some people and some situations that will challenge you. But you've got to focus, you got to look, and you got to say there's something good here. The first times you do this, yeah, it might be a struggle. It might feel like, oh, this is really difficult. But if you stay with it, you're going to start seeing the good everywhere. That's a simple, easy, doesn't cost anything, begin it right now, way of using a technique to start to move into abundance.